You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet. Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
All right, Miami! Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. 'Cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins.
Good evening, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Sunday, March 3rd, 2024. I am your host, Michael Leva, joined, as always, by Tom Ernest from right here at DolphinsTalk.com. Tom, how you doing today?
Well, I was enjoying the off season, and then we got a little bit of news today regarding the Miami Dolphins. Some, could be good, and obviously some that's not looking so good right now. But we're gonna break it all down for you on the show, and happy to be back on a Sunday night with you, my friend.
Yeah, unsurprising as we hit March here and turn the corner into this new league year that's about to start in a week or so. As I've been saying on some previous shows, the news is just going to start coming fast and furious. And it kind of started this morning on Sunday with some ESPN reports that will sort of clear up where we are with some big ticket items like Wilkins and stuff. So we're going to talk about that. There's news on Robert Hunt. There's a rumor out there that seems a little crazy. But again, with our general manager, nothing's ever crazy. And we're going to break it all down for you. But before we get to any of that, as always, a big shout out to everyone listening at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, a shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page, run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, please be sure you are a part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page. Also, wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Podbean, Podchaser, we're on all the platforms. Subscribe. Like I said, this is just Sunday. We had some news drop. It's going to start coming literally every day, probably till the end of the month. So you're not going to want to miss a show once this news drops, because you're going to want the latest, and we will have the rumors, scenarios, breaking news when it happens here at the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. So subscribe on any platform. And if you go to our Apple Podcast page, leave us a 5-star rating and positive review. I'll read it on the air and give you a shout out. All right, Tom, let's talk about the big news. Jeremy Fowler, ESPN Sunday Morning, is reporting that the Miami Dolphins likely will not put the franchise tag on Christian Wilkins, and he will be a free agent. Now, 2 weeks ago, Dan Graziano from ESPN said Miami likely will not let Christian Wilkins go, and they will keep him come hell or high water, even if that means using the franchise tag. Well, 2 weeks have gone on, and obviously this story, which is fluid, has changed, and they're saying now Miami will not most likely use the franchise tag, and they even named 2 possible landing spots in Houston and Cleveland here for Wilkins. And just to be clear before we start, nothing's finalized. Not until March 5th. We will know by March 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern if the franchise tag will or will not be used on Christian Wilkins. But as of right now, per this reporting, and Jeremy Fowler's as good as it gets, it sounds like the Dolphins are not going to use the franchise tag on Wilkins. And here's the deal. I'm not surprised. And I know, here's the long and short of it. The Dolphins have salary cap issues. I know if you go on social media, you will find somebody who will, use a word salad to make you think they don't have salary cap issues. They got salary cap issues, folks. They need to clear some $30 million or so in salary cap in the next week. And if you want to tag Wilkins, then you got to clear another 20, 21, 22 million after you clear the first 30. And I know it's easy for armchair general managers to say, cut this guy, cut that guy, rework this guy's deal, And it's so easy. Anyone can do it, but it's not that easy. And the issue is Miami might not want to do all of that. Do you think the Miami Dolphins really want to rework the deal of someone like Teron Armstead and be tied to him longer than they need to? Guy's never on the field, never healthy. Do you think after another off-the-field issue with Tyreek Hill, they might want to rework the deal of Tyreek Hill? Maybe they do. I don't know. But I'd be very careful because the off-the-field stuff with him, I mean, Jesus Christ, it comes every other week. There's something new with this guy. They might not want to be tied to him any longer than they have to be. It's not as cut and dry as some fans think. And I think the biggest issue to me, Tom, they don't want to call this guy's bluff. If they use the non-exclusive tag on Christian Wilkins with the hope of, we'll put this tag on him, he'll talk to teams, and then if someone wants him, we'll just trade him. That's just so easy. We're just going to trade him. He might say, screw you, I'm signing the tag, see you September 1st. He might not, he could, that's them, and then if you're Miami, you're stuck. He's showing up, he's $20 million on the books. You can't trade him then. So they might not want to play that game of chicken with him because maybe they know something we don't, or they just feel, look, there's no market for this guy. Like, teams will pay him, but no team's going to pay him and then part with a first or second round pick. They might have that information already. That's not realistic. So it's like, why are we tagging him? We can't afford him, or we don't want to move heaven and earth to make this work for a year. I think that's kind of where we're at. They're like, look, we got to clear all this money, which is, some of it's simple. You can cut guys like a Jeff Wilson. They obviously did easy cuts with Howard and like the easy ones, but now it comes more the heavy lifting to make some of the space. And they might not want to do all the heavy lifting that's needed to, not just get cap compliant, but then clear another $20 million after that to fit him on there. So I think that's kind of where they are, at least in my eyes. You don't have to agree, everyone, but that's kind of where I see it. Tom, what are some of your thoughts?
I wish they would have just got it done back in 2021. We wouldn't be in this position because, obviously two things. Number one, Wilkins' play from the last 2 years have elevated. He bet on himself last summer. They couldn't come to terms on a contract. He bet on himself that he was going to have a phenomenal season and he's going to make money. And what did he do? He doubled his career sack total for a single season. He was one of the best interior defenders in football. He was one of the best run stoppers in football. He was one of the best pressure rate defensive tackles against a quarterback in football. He had a tremendous year. And the Dolphins did this to themselves, unfortunately, which puts us in this position, right? They don't want to tag him for $22 million. They're not going to put a transition tag on him because that's foolish. It doesn't work for a superstar player like that. And for me, I would like the non-exclusive tag, but like you said, he could say, I don't need to shop my services around. I want to stay here. So just pay me my $22 million this year and we'll go from there. So I agree that, during the combine, there's always conversations between general managers and agents. Teams are talking to each other, obviously not in plain sight. And they get a feel for what the market could look like. So if the Dolphins felt they could tag and trade him and net out better than the compensatory third-round pick they're most likely going to get for Christian Wilkins leaving, they probably realized teams were not going to trade a decent pick, being a first or second rounder, for Christian Wilkins and pay him near $100 million because that's what the contract's going to look like. And the Dolphins can't carry $22 million on their salary cap just based on the position they're in. I'm working on my free agency article that I do every year, and I'm going through the cap numbers myself and try to figure out how they can get money. Adding Christian Wilkins back on the books for $21 to $22 million, the Dolphins will sit on their hands through the first wave of free agency and bargain shop the rest of the way. So there's going to be zero impact if they put that on their books. So it sucks because Christian Wilkins is a leader of this football team. Since day one, he's been one of the funniest guys I've seen with the Miami Dolphins. He's a character. We saw it on Hard Knocks up close and personal. He's a high character guy. He loves the game of football. It's the type of guy you don't want to see leave. But this is the position the Dolphins are in salary cap wise. You can only pay what you're going to pay for players. and to field a competitive roster. So the Dolphins might be bargain shopping in free agency to fill an interior defensive lineman. In addition to that, they could look to the draft. Time will tell. We'll see what happens. The other thing that came to mind when they said they weren't going to tag Christian Wilkins, how close are they on the Tua Tagovailoa extension? Because that can free up quite a bit of money. So I don't know how close they are there, that they could just get this done before free agency starts with Tua to free up the additional potential $15 to $17 million in cap space, because that money there could pay for the tag for Christian Wilkins, and then there's a little bit less concern there. So I think there's still a bit to go when it comes to what they want to do with Tua's contract. Whether you agree with it or not, it's gonna happen. But unfortunately, because of that, I think Christian Wilkins is going to be shown the door, which isn't the best move for the franchise. But we'll see what Anthony Weaver's going to do. You know, he did a great job in Baltimore coaching that defensive line there. There could be some players in the market that will fit the mold. You could probably find 2 interior defensive linemen for the cost of 1 Christian Wilkins. Are they going to be as good as Christian Wilkins? Probably not. Christian Wilkins is top 4, in my opinion, in the NFL as an interior defender. So it sucks. It's a bad day for Dolphins fans losing a great player, but
nothing's official.
Cost of doing business.
Official yet? Yeah. On the Tua contract, last reporting I heard was, and it's like this for every quarterback when you're talking about that amount of money, and it's a ton of money over 4 years or 5 years, probably 5 years. Those contracts take a lot of time because there's so much moving parts and
a lot of language.
There's just a lot. So those contracts take months. Now, I don't know when they started, obviously. So if something comes out in the next 24 hours, I wouldn't be shocked. But that might go into like May or June, or even later. Because once again, those just take so much time because there's so much money and there's so much happening there. So that one, look, we all hope it's soon. In all honesty, it probably won't be. But I think when it comes to Wilkins, I've been saying, since last August, at the end of August, when they paid Zach Sealer, they trade all last offseason with Wilkins. And when they then gave the extension to Zach Sealer, I think the Dolphins made their peace with, we're probably going to lose Wilkins. We can't lose them both. We got to keep one. In all honesty, though, the day they traded for Chubb and gave him a lot of big money was probably the day Christian Wilkins' time in Miami came to an end. Because how many guys can you pay in your front 7? You can't keep everybody. And that's the thing. If you could, every team would. You can't in this salary cap era. And they traded for Chubb, gave him a big money deal. Zach Sealer got a big money deal. Now you're going to pay Wilkins a big money deal. And, there's ways to make this work. But, if Wilkins is gone, then do you go out, and take the money you were going to pay him and go get like a Patrick Queen? It's possible. Do you take the money you were going to get him and maybe, which we'll talk about later on in the show, trade for a L'Jarius Sneed? That's possible. There's other ways, but when Wilkins is gone, if he's gone, which is now starting to seem like a reality here, you're going to have to take that $22 million or so that would have been allocated towards him and go sign 2 or 3 vets on 1 or 2-year deals, or go pay a superstar instead who might be at that number or less to help replace him to fix that side of the ball. And at the end of the day, I know I saw today a lot of fans on Dolphins are mad, and they're really, really mad, and I get it. You can say Wilkins isn't worth X amount of money, however much is 24, 25, 26 minutes, however much he wants. You can say Wilkins doesn't show up in big games. You can say Wilkins isn't elite. As a fan of this team, just as a fan who wants to see the team wins, I don't care. It's been 24 years without a Super Bowl. It's been 24 years without a playoff win. It's been 40 years without a Super Bowl appearance, and the Miami Dolphins are a worse team on the field without Christian Wilkins. And as a fan, that kind of pisses me off. It seems like we're moving backwards, not forwards, as a fan. Now, I get it. If he wants 25, 26 million, trust me, put me in Chris Grier's camp. I ain't paying him that much. But as just blind-ass fan, I want to see the team win, and that's a better team on the field with Christian Wilkins. And now I got to be sold hope that my GM is going to find a way to replace him and upgrade the rest of and upgrade the rest of the team overall with the money that was allocated to him. Sorry if I don't have the faith in our general manager that's going to happen. So, it's just very unfortunate if he has played his last game for the Dolphins. A lot of people are pointing the finger at Grier. I get it. Look, if you're a long time listener to the show, I am no big fan of Chris Grier. Okay. It's clear as day. He drags his feet on the important stuff like this. And if Wilkins leaves, he better have a counter move to not only replace him, but use all that money to make this team significantly better. That's the only thing I can say. If Wilkins, this is a guy you drafted, you developed to a cornerstone building block piece. And if you let him walk out that door for a possible compensatory pick, it's not even a sure thing you'll get one. For a possible compensatory pick, you better have a plan B to say, I got to get this guy to at least replace him and maybe add a Patrick Queen or maybe add a Sneed or maybe add whoever to make sure that side of the ball is competent in 2024 and beyond. That's all I'm going to say about that, Tom.
Yeah, the offense is obviously the least of the worries based on how they've played. Being the number one offense, obviously the offensive line is a topic of conversation every single offseason without fail. We'll see how they address that. But outside of that, I'm not worried about it. But the defense without Christian Wilkins, like you said, it gets a little bit concerning to see how they're going to fill that position and how the defense is going to play without one of the cornerstone guys that they've had here since he was drafted in 2019. So time will tell. I'll give Anthony Weaver, his flowers if he can turn this unit into top 10, because Vic Fangio.
It's already a top 10 unit. He's got to make it top 5.
He's got to make it, yeah. But when losing Christian Wilkins, I'll be happy with top 10 if that's the way it boils down. But we got to give him time. He was there at the combine. He's looking at defensive players. He knows his players from his time in Baltimore. There's a chance that there might be a couple guys that become free agents that sign from Baltimore to Miami. So not saying that it's going to look the same or it's going to be the same as Baltimore's number one defense, but we'll give it time. We'll see how they replace him. Time is going to tell on really every single move that they make in the next few weeks.
And for those of you on social media, because I know not everyone is, I thought there was an outstanding tweet today from Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. And, like I said, a lot of fans of Dolphins are mad. They're upset if this is the end of the road here for Wilkins. Again, we don't know. This is just a report. March 5th is in 2 days. A lot can happen between now and then. Yep. Maybe they have a change of heart and they will put the tag on him and he's here. But once again, as of the time we are recording this, it seems like that might not be the case. But this tweet here from Barry Jackson sums up Miami Dolphins fandom in like 2 sentences. After tank rebuild, if you're happy with the Miami Dolphins being a playoff caliber team, which they weren't for years, and having an entertaining product, but not a serious Super Bowl contender, then be happy. If you expect a Super Bowl contender after all this trouble, then you can be unhappy. It's your call. Because I know, I will say, Tom, for the past 2 or 3 weeks, outside of just like promoting our shows and putting up some articles, I've really stayed off social media because I freaking hate Twitter. I think it's like the downfall of society. It's just so bad on so many levels. And it's been a great life, actually. But it's like seeing fans be mad. Like, I don't know. God bless. As we always say, if you can fan any way you want, I don't care. You can be a happy fan who spins everything positive, or you can be a miserable SOB. I don't care. But God bless any fan that, is going into 2024 with a ton of hope around this team if Wilkins is walking out the door. Because it seems like we just, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's like we're just spinning our wheels in the mud here. And, here's the other thing I'm going to say, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Siobhan Holland on Twitter, on his birthday, no less, fighting with fans on Twitter. Just don't. Never fight with fans. You're not going to win. Fans are allowed to have an opinion. The fans were here before you got here. They're going to be here after you're gone. Okay, do not tell fans how to think or act. If fans have an opinion you don't like, I get it, and you have every right to express it. But man, that's just another bad luck. It's like, do not fight with fans on Twitter, okay? Because you've been here, 3 years now, heading on 4. That fan has probably been here closer to 20 or 30. And his perspective is not going to be the same as yours. Yes, you might know more because you know the behind-the-scenes stuff. Maybe what that fan said at the end of the day is dumb and whatever. Just don't fight with them because it's never a good luck. And it never ends well for anyone involved from the player side. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Well, when we move on from the Christian Wilkins topic, I mean, based on potential rumor, Mike, maybe there's a reason why they aren't tagging Christian Wilkins.
Well, yeah. Well, we got a couple stories here. I'll go to the rumor first because it came from the same ESPN report from Jeremy Fowler. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to put the non-exclusive franchise tag on cornerback L'Jarius Sneed, who these days is one of the best corners in the league. I'm not saying he's 1 or 2. He's probably top 5 or top 6 when it comes to corners in the league. Yeah. The Chiefs, again, have a salary cap issue. They have Jones on their line. They have Sneed, and they can't afford them both, really. And they view Jones as more pivotal. So, per the report from ESPN, they're going to use a non-exclusive franchise tag on Sneed, let him talk to other teams. The tag for this year is around $19 million for corners. And Sneed is open to a trade. He's open to all this. He's fine. He understands it's a business. So Sneed here might be on the trade block. And per Jeremy Fowler, he said the Lions are really a team to watch. And he goes, keep an eye on Miami as well. They're another team to keep an eye on here when it comes to L'Jarius Sneed. 27-year-old. And again, if you're not paying Wilkins, where's that money going to go to make this team better? You just lost Xavier Howard. Well, that one's not officially yet, but we all know it's coming. You just lost Xavier Howard. Kader Kohu regressed in year 2. You have Cam Smith, who everyone hopes is good. And I know it's easy to say, well, Vic Fangio screwed him. Cam Smith, we don't know. Cam Smith might be the next Noah Igbenogany. We have no earthly idea. And they don't have anyone, unless you want to re-sign Eli Apple, they have nobody in-house to replace Xavier Howard. So they need, yes, you want Cam Smith in the mix, obviously, to see, but you need a veteran presence as well, just in case the Cam Smith thing blows up in your face. You can't go into the season with Cam Smith thinking, oh, he's going to be fine. We got nothing to worry about. So, yeah, that's the deal here with Sneed. Now, the problem is he's not a free agent. It's a trade. So, and if you're the Chiefs, you're going to want a 1 or a 2 for him, or maybe, or more. I don't know. People are saying, well, we got Ramsey last year for 3 years because the Rams were in a different situation. This is the Chiefs. Their situation's different. They're coming off 2 Super Bowl wins. They're not going to just hand this guy away. So Miami, you had no picks in round 1 or 2 in 2022, had no pick in round 1 in 2023. This year, have no picks in rounds 3 or 4. Now, so say you trade a 1 for Sneed or 2. First 4 rounds of the draft, you got 1 pick. That's what makes this almost impossible for Miami. I think it's unlikely, but again, with our general manager, would anything shock you?
No, because did we go into March last year expecting a Ramsey trade? They traded for Jaylen Ramsey. I mean, I wouldn't put anything past Chris Grier. The one thing he's been known to do is he swings for big trades. Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Ramsey. It continues to go on. Now, the only way I could see a potential trade happen would be that the Dolphins having pick 21 and the Chiefs having pick 32. The way, again, I could be completely out of left field on this. What I would think, if you are to trade for Sneed and a contract, the Dolphins take pick 21 and give that to Kansas City. They swap to 32, and the Dolphins kick in a 2025 conditional third that can bump to a second based on incentives for Sneed's playing time or whatever it might be. So at the end, you move down the draft board, you keep your first round pick, but go to 32 and trade a potential escalating pick in 2025. So the Chiefs end up getting a trade up, which benefits them because they need a pass catcher, and it benefits the Dolphins for filling in for Xavier Howard. Now, Is that a trade that the Chiefs will accept? Probably not. But in my head,
I like the thought process, but probably not. Yeah.
probably not. But moving up 11 spots benefits them because
How about this?
if you didn't watch
Go
the
from
combine,
21.
look at the wide receivers. They're going to want one.
How about go from 20? How about go? And I'm just throwing this out there. Look, folks, I don't think this is going to happen, but just play along. It's March. We're playing along with the report. Say they go from 21 to 32, and then you throw in pick number 55. I think that's more realistic, honestly.
It could
from Miami. I wouldn't do it. But for the Chiefs, they'd probably be all over that.
Yeah, I think that's why they would do the conditional 25 from Miami.
Chiefs might not want a 25 though. They probably want something now.
They may not, but it's an additional pick for them next year. And I think if Miami lands at 32, that's the prime spot to trade back or trade out and move back a couple spots or just a few spots into the second round. So you're picking at the top of the second round, and you don't have a massive contract to hand out, and you could still get a good offensive lineman. You could still get a tight end. You can get a defensive end. You can get, a position of need on this team. But that's the only way I could see it work for the Dolphins. The Dolphins aren't just going to give up draft capital and not take draft capital back in this draft, because for me, it's sitting at 21 and they don't make any moves. I want them to trade back because they need to fill spots in round 3. Round 4, because of the salary cap. You need to have cheaper young football players that you have control of for the next 4 years that can play potential pivotal roles, whether it's starting role or a depth role this year. So I don't think they're just going to give away picks, but Chris Grier has done crazier things when it comes to trades. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and the other part of a trade here is if you make this trade, then you got to break the bank and actually pay this guy with a long-term deal because you're not partnering with us for a 1-year rental. For have him just be on the tag, then you got to give him a deal,
But
a big money deal, which I know they can probably make it work with the money. But the part again, if they would have had picks the past couple of years, they didn't lose all these picks for tampering, which is only on themselves. If they didn't, trade away all these picks for Hill and Chubb, which again, I have less of a problem with that than I do with the ones for tampering, because that's just incompetence from the people at the top. You could maybe talk me into something like this, but because they've had so few picks, I see it unlikely. I see it almost impossible, honestly. But again, Jeremy Fowler's very trusted, very plugged in. He's just not. There's 31 teams you could have picked. He had Lions, Miami. I mean, it just pick Miami out of a hat. He must have heard something.
Yeah, and when it boils down to it, if L'Jarius Sneed is on the non-exclusive tag, just don't be surprised if the Dolphins bring him in for a visit. Just don't.
Oh, why not?
Surprised. That doesn't mean that they're going to finalize anything with him, but L'Jarius Sneed, NFL players understand a couple things. Number one, the state of Florida, there is no tax. There is no state tax. That saves millions and millions of dollars on a contract versus playing in New York, Michigan, California. Those teams have to pay more than what teams in Florida have to because of the tax. Number two, the report that came out, and you could take it with a grain of salt, but it's an NFLPA thing. The Dolphins are the number one team in the league when it comes to facility, treatment of players, all this other stuff. So free agents would like to come to Miami, whether it's for a visit, sign the contract, or whatever, because that report will help the Dolphins. I'm not saying they're going to sign every big name free agent or whatever else, because that's just not in the cards. But a L'Jarius Sneed will look at it and say, well, the Dolphins are calling. Yeah, let me go talk to the Dolphins. And in that room, you're going to have Jaylen Ramsey sitting at that table because it's a recruiting. Whether they work out a trade or not is a whole different conversation. But just don't be surprised if you see at the beginning of the league year L'Jarius Sneed visiting the Dolphins for a visit.
Here's a comment I want to play too from this guy in our chat here, Michael. It's amazing. It's unreal. The Chiefs are not trading him. Did anyone think the Chiefs would trade Tyreek Hill?
Nope.
They won 2 Super Bowls without him. The Chiefs can draft. They know what they're doing, and they know when it's time to move on from a guy, and they know how to replace him. So it's not a stupid rumor. Now, look, he might not come to Miami, but the Chiefs are going to tag and trade this guy and get some. Maybe he goes to the Lions. Lions probably have a lot more to offer than us when it comes to picks and maybe money and stuff. But to think that the Chiefs are not trading him, the whole report is they told him, we want to tag and trade you. And Sneed said, thank you. I want to get paid. I don't care where I get paid. Oh, they're trading him. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if it's Miami, but the Chiefs know what they're doing. That's one franchise you can't really question too much.
Correct. And you can't say it's not a rumor when it's actually a rumor. And it's factual.
It's not even a rumor. It's a story.
It's a story
Rumors
that
might not happen. This is happening.
You can't say it's not. You can't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. You know what I mean? It's happening. Whether he ends up in Miami or not is a different topic of conversation. But the fact is that Miami is listed in the story because they have a glaring need at corner. And they are not, I repeat, they are not shy of swinging for the fences. They just did it last year with Jaylen Ramsey. Who thought that was happening?
Well, here's the deal, too. If you're the Dolphins, like, you kind of got to pick a lane. You can't, for the past 2 years, go, F them picks. I don't care. Just give me superstars. Screw the draft. And now, all of a sudden, let's trade back and add more picks. No, you got to pick a lane. If you're F them picks, that's your strategy. You can't change halfway through it and be like, no, we have to get as many as possible trade back. You can't be half pregnant. And that's the problem with the Dolphins. They try to be all things all the time. If you're going to be F them pick, well, what the hell? Trade them. Go get Sneed. So that's why I say, do I think it's going to happen? No, because I think there's other teams who can pay Sneed more than Miami. And I think at the end of the day, the Chiefs, see, with Tyreek, it was Jets in Miami. The money was equal. Miami, no state income tax. Tyreek lives in the South, closer to home, the whole thing. So that tilted him to Miami. If the Lions are paying, just for an example, a little bit more or substantially more than what Miami can offer, the Chiefs don't have to be nice. They're nice to Tyreek because it was the same with each team. If it's with the Lions, they might be able to offer them, a first and a third this year. I'm just making it up, whatever. And then you got Miami. He's like, well, we'll swap. We'll give you something 2020. No, we ain't being nice twice. We're going with the Lions deal. It's just better. So, again, this is happening. It's not a rumor. Now, if he comes to Miami, I don't know. But, again, Jeremy Fowler doesn't just make stuff up. He has no incentive to throw Miami's name out there. He has nothing to gain by it. So if he's reporting it, again, there must be something to it. Yeah. We will see.
Yes. Let's
talk about another Miami Dolphins free agent. That's Robert Hunt. Came out this past week that him and his representation shut down mid-season contract extension talks. He really wanted to hit the open market. And from a him perspective, that makes a lot of sense, as it was reported this morning, too, again from ESPN, that the guard market, all the top offensive, all the top guys at that spot are looking at around 16, 17 million here once free agency starts. And I'm sure if he signed a deal midseason with Miami, he wasn't getting on average 16 million a year. I'm almost positive Chris Grier ain't doing that. So we don't know. Maybe if Wilkins walks, maybe they have a little extra money to pay someone like Hunt to keep him. It's all possible. If I had to guess on March 3rd, Robert Hunt's probably played his last game with the Dolphins too. And first off, I'm okay with that. I mean, look, I like Robert Hunt. I don't want to see him go. I don't. But he's been a good guard. And good is about it. He's not elite. He ain't great. Now, I know fans of Dolphins always overvalue all players on the team. They fall in love with them. And when you line up Robert Hunt next to the Jesse Davises of the world, he appears great. But at the end of the day, he's a good player. But he ain't no $16 million guard. I don't blame him for anything he did. He handled this right. He's going to get paid. But Hunt was a pick at the top of round 2. We'll see how this plays out. Hopefully, they can get some sort of compensatory pick there as long as they don't go buck wild crazy in free agency. That's something else with the trade for Sneed. That's a trade. It's not a signing. It wouldn't go against the compensatory formula on how you get picks. So that's something else to keep in mind. But, in-house, you got guys like Robert Jones, Liam Eichenberg, Lester Cotton. Are they great? No. But I think if you told me Liam Eichenberg is either your starting right guard or left guard next year, I would not have a problem with that. I don't want him at center. But if he's just starting right guard or left guard, from what I saw from him this past year, blocking-wise, I am fine with that, and he ain't going to cost $16 million. I know that. So, look, I like Hunt. I do. But I don't think he's worth that much. And he's one guy who, if he can get that type of money, great for him. But again, we drafted him to be our right tackle in the future. He failed there. And then he moved to guard. And he's been a good guard, Tom. He's been good. Well, let's not go nuts here and say, he's like an all-pro guard. He ain't that. He ain't close to that.
He's been very, very solid for the Dolphins since he was drafted. He had the injury bug last year, but that was rare for him. He didn't really miss much.
Only time he's ever been injured, yeah.
Yeah. So, and if the market is as robust as they're saying for interior guards, go get that money, dog. And if he does sign for, top five guard money in the free agent pool this year, again, long game, Dolphins lose a good player, gain compensatory pick. Whether he's he probably would right now, depending on what the Dolphins do in free agent, because again, there's a whole formula to all this.
The formula.
Christian Wilkins, if you don't go out and sign a big money defensive tackle to offset it, you're getting a third round for Christian Wilkins. That's just the way it is. Hunt probably ends up being a fourth or fifth round compensatory pick, depending on what you do in regards to signing guards. Dolphins haven't been in the compensation formula for these picks in the draft in God knows how many years. It'll be nice to actually pick up some of these because, again, they're additional picks starting in the third round. And again, that's how you can make trades to move up in the draft. That's how you can just build a roster. If you keep those picks, trade them back, pick up more picks, so on and so forth. There's a lot of good with that. But again, you lose a good football player. I'm not paying Robert Hunt $16 million personally. So yeah, I've had a feeling that Liam Eichenberg, based on how they used him last year and the consistent moving him around, showed his value. Was he great? No, of course not. Was he awful? No, he wasn't awful. He
could snap the ball, but he could block. And when he was at either center or guard, he blocked well. He did block well last year.
Yes, he had a much better year than the previous 2 years he was here. But because of his contract, it looks more enticing to have him start. I agree with you. I don't want him anywhere near the center. I don't want him snapping a football. Right guard or left guard, that's fine. He doesn't cost as much. That's where, from a center perspective, if you don't draft one, if you don't get, Powers Johnson, or if you don't draft the other kid, the name eluding me right now, but if you don't get a center in the draft and you don't sign one in free agency, Connor Williams is going to come with a little bit less expense just because time frame for him. You could bring him back on like a 4-year contract at cheap money in the first 2 years because of his injury. That's a possibility, but he's not playing it down to football. Maybe at best sometime in October he's back, but time will tell.
Yeah. They actually think that's somewhat likely that they will sign Connor Williams, probably after June 1st. And, he'll sit out the first 6-7 games or however many games it is, somewhere around there. And he'll come back then. And then what you do for the first 6-7 weeks, I have no idea. But that's their job. That's why they get paid millions to figure that stuff out. And I think the other thing we have to remember here, and as much as, we've laughed at it, and a lot of longtime fans of Dolphins laughed at it. Again, Chris Grier, which leads into our next topic, he is so transparent. He ain't playing 3D chess. When he sits at a podium or he sits at a table and says, you're more worried about the offensive line than we are, he ain't playing. I mean, he's being totally honest. So, you can say, well, they can't go half a season with Liam Eichenberg at center. Like hell they can't. Like hell they can't.
They did.
Hold my beer. Watch them. Like hell they can't. They look, we haven't won squat in a long time. So it's fair to question some of the choices they make, but they are who they are. And when they say you're more worried about the offensive line than we are, believe them. I'm not saying you're going to like it.
They're not giving you lip
believe
service.
them because that's how they feel.
They're not giving you
they've proven that. Like they have proven that. So, which leads into our next topic I want to talk about, because I wrote an article, which is up at the website, DolphinsTalk.com. Go check it out. How Chris Grier's history sheds light on what's going to come next. And as I said, Chris Grier's been here forever now, and he's had total control now for a healthy amount of time.
Yep.
You know his likes, you know things he doesn't like. He's as transparent as cellophane. He ain't playing 3D chess. You know who he is. So here's, as we get into here closer to the start of free agency, let's go over some of his likes and some of his dislikes. Let's start with the dislikes. We just talked about investing big money in offensive linemen. It ain't going to happen. Okay. They just paid Austin Jackson, and, he got paid a nice amount of money. I wouldn't call it big money, but he got a fair contract.
Yes,
Armstead, even when they paid him, they invested in him because, they didn't have to, if he was a guy who was never hurt, he would have got far more than what he did.
Yep.
But they were able to get him somewhat at like a reasonable rate because of his injury history. Who else is he signing? Isaiah Wynn, that wasn't big money. He doesn't pay. Even Connor Williams, when he signed away from the Cowboys, it was like a pedestrian deal. It wasn't huge money. They are not going to go out there and, like I said, spend $16 million on a guard or anything like that. That's just not who they are. So don't expect that. Number two, he is not going to invest any money in special teams. I think Jason Sanders has a nice contract. That's a healthy contract. I think that's probably the only time he's ever invested in special teams. He's not going to spend big money on a returner. He's not going to spend any big money on a punter. He's not going to spend any big money on a quote-unquote special teams only type guy. That ain't happening. Everyone's out there, sign this punter, sign that punter. They'll find a punter who nobody else wants, and they'll be perfectly happy with it. I might not agree with it. You might not like it. That's his history. They ain't spending money on anything in special teams. And the other thing we know he does not do, which is, one of Tom's favorites, he won't spend money on running backs, and he won't use a pick in round 1 or 2-on-1. The fact you got A-Chain in round 3 last year is probably all you need to know, in that he avoided the position like the plague years previously. He signed guys like Chase Edmonds for almost no money, Mostert, Wilson for under $3 million-ish, roughly. He ain't spending money on a running back. Jordan Howard's probably the most he's ever spent on one, and he was like, screw that. That blew up. I ain't ever doing that again. So as much, I think they should sign someone like a Henry because it changes the face of this offense. As much as I would like that to happen, probably unlikely because this guy doesn't want to spend money on running backs. And he kicked the tires on all of them last year. And at the end of the day, he kept his hands in his pockets. So I think we know what he doesn't like. Not spending money on the offensive line, not spending money on special teams. And he ain't going to use a pick in round 1 or 2 on a running back, and he ain't going to spend money on a running back in free agency. Now, here's what he likes, Tom. And I'll get your thoughts.
Yep.
Rounds 1 or 2, only premium position guys. And what are the 5 premium positions? Quarterback, offensive tackle, cornerback, wide receiver, edge. You look in recent years, since he's had power, Noah, Austin, Tua, and Hunt was drafted as a right tackle. So that year there was 4 in round 1 and 2. Raekwon wasn't, but again, it was pick number 5 in round 1 or 2. You're allowed to have some fun at that point. The next year, Waddle, Jaylen Phillips, Eichenberg, again, right tackle when he was drafted. Holland, again, it was the 4th pick, 9th. In other words, you can have a little fun there. And then even 2022, there was nothing because they didn't have a pick around 1 or 2. Last year, Cam Smith. Rounds 1 or 2. And I know fans like, you got to take this tight end. You got to take this center. He drafting premium position guys. And that's why if they take a wide receiver in round 1, I would not be shocked. If they take an offensive tackle and move him inside 1 year to guard until Armstead's gone, I would not be shocked because he's an offensive tackle. Or if they take an edge in round 1, I would not be shocked. I don't see him taking a center in round 1. That's just not how he operates. Number 2, what we sort of talked about. He likes one big splashy trade or signing each offseason. Whether it's Ramsey last year, Tyreek the year before, even Chubb at the trade time in late October. He likes that one big splashy move a year. We'll see. The other one is, and he loves this one, you give him a player with a red flag that he can sign on the cheap, like an Armstead, like a Wynn, who was a first-round bust with the Patriots, was terrible. I'll sign him. Chase Claypool, yeah, we'll swap picks. Give me Chase Claypool. Nobody wants Chase Claypool. I'll give him. Mark Walton, he gets arrested 50,000 times. I'll take Mark Walton. Come on. Probably chosen Robbie Anderson. Oh, come on, Robbie, I'll take you too. Isaiah Wilson, another first-round bust who got cut after they traded for him, got cut before he stepped one foot in the building because he couldn't show up on time to get his badge. If there's a guy with a red flag of any sort that Chris Grier thinks he's getting a bargain on, he will jump at that opportunity to get a reclamation project that he can sort of fix, or somebody who he thinks he's getting a deal. If this guy goes to Walmart or Target to go shopping, he's shopping in the irregular section for any shirt that's got like an error on it with like one sleeve longer than the other. That he loves that stuff. So that's Chris Grier in a nutshell. Tom, tell me if I'm wrong on any of this.
No, you're spot on with all of it. Particularly the last part, he looks for guys that have injury red flags, guys that have some off-field stuff. It's just been his MO. And, you also touched on, he looks for this big splashy move every offseason, whether it's a signing in free agency or you making a big trade. So again, don't put it past Chris Grier to go out and make a massive play, whether it's the trade or free agency, when the bell rings on March 13th. When that bell rings,
I think the legal tampering period is March 11th.
Yeah,
I think that's when you can start talking.
Yep.
And
so,
yeah,
don't put it past him.
No,
don't put it past him.
Would you be shocked if they let Wilkins walk, and on March 11th at about 5 p.m., you see a tweet from Adam Schefter or whoever saying the Miami Dolphins and Patrick Queen have agreed to terms in principle? I'll let Wilkins walk, but here's his replacement. Even though it's not the same position, it's a player on that side of the ball who's a quote-unquote impact player. Yeah. Would you be shocked by that at all?
Nope.
Would you be – now, the Sneed thing, I'd be a little surprised because Days don't have the draft picks. Yeah. But I wouldn't be shocked if it happens, but that makes it a little bit tougher. But he could spin the logic, well, it doesn't count against a compensatory formula. And, I think he's better than anyone we would have got at pick whatever, blah, blah, blah. Look, if it's only pick number 55, sign me up for that. If they can make it work financially, pick 55, especially the way he drafts, I'll take Sneed. But if you start talking about pick 21, that's where it becomes a little crazy to me. So look, like none of this stuff shocks me. I am all on board with signing someone like Henry, just because you tell me you want to be more physical. Well, show me. And I'm sorry, Achan's a nice player, and I love Achan. I like Mostert as well, but late in the year, Raheem Mostert's missed big games the past 2 seasons in Miami. I know he scored 20-something touchdowns last year, but he missed a playoff game versus the Bills. He missed this year at the Ravens in Week 18 versus the Bills. So if you're not there when the games matter most, that kind of makes it tough. And then you got Achan, who was hurt all season. Got hurt in training camp. He got hurt week 3 or 4. Got hurt again. I mean, the guy was hurt all season on and off. So not that I don't want them here. I'm not saying replace them. I'm not saying pay Henry like the highest paid guy in the league. But if you can get Henry for 6, 7, 8 something million, hello, it's a physical back who I know if we're on a playoff game, at Cincinnati, at Cleveland, at the Ravens, I want that guy who's one who almost never gets hurt, who is going to run someone over on the road in the cold where we have a puncher's chance. Okay, so, and I'm not saying go out there and get every running back. I'm just saying him. I want him specifically for a skill set that we lack. So I don't know. I know there's been rumors about that. Once again, probably seems unlikely, but to me,
get me
what's insanity, Tom? What's insanity, Tom?
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
You think Raheem Mostert's going to be injured again late December, first part of January, missing big games? You think Achan's not going to get hurt once or twice this year? You think Miami is going to struggle in big games on the road late in the season? What's their record in December or January with Mike McDaniel and Tua? What's their record? It freaking stinks. And if you don't change, if you just think, oh, we got to tweak this, tweak that, you have to change the mentality. You have to change the approach. You don't tell me you want to be more physical. Get me players who are more physical, who can actually buck the trend and turn things around. So, I have little faith, but that's what I would do.
I just saw this posted I don't think this guy actually watches football.
Do you actually? He played 17 games last year. He's outside of 2021, the past 4 years. Like, he's missed one game. Like, do people actually watch games? He started 17 games last year on a garbage team with no quarterback.
Bad
He played
offensive
12
line,
touchdowns. He played on one of the worst teams in the league last year.
Still good.
Past 4 years. Here, this guy's been a prick all show. And I don't even like to address people on that because, look, anyone can have a dumb opinion. I don't really care. Yeah. Let's just talk games played. 2020, 16-16. 2021, he got hurt, mistake. 2022, 16-16. 2023, 17-17. I mean, the guy's never hurt. 2019, 15-15. He misses like one game a year most at that. And here's the other thing. What Coach I was about to talk about, it just came out from the combine. It's a joke. It's not funny. Not sarcasm either. It doesn't come across, buddy. You come off like a prick. The NFL is about to go to an 18-game season. Guys are going to miss a game or two. That's fine. They're going to move this to an 18-game season. Why? Because there's more money. Hence, the salary cap goes up. Yeah. So once they get to an 18-game season, if a guy's only playing 16, 18, it doesn't make him injury prone. The guy's playing 10. You might have somewhat of an injury issue. Guys missing 1 or 2 games as they keep adding games. You can't expect these guys to not get hurt and miss no time as they keep expanding the season. So there's that. Also, the onside kick rule, Tom. I don't know if you saw that. That was, you can only onside kick in the fourth quarter.
The other team you're going
and you have to tell the other team it's coming. I mean, why even have kickoffs at this point? Just get rid of it.
If they're really serious about the special teams and keeping the kickoff in the game, the XFL one is fantastic. You got the opposing, you got the kick coverage team lining up at the opposing 40-yard line, and then you got the return team guys at the 30-yard line. The kicker's by himself and the returner's by himself, and there's still no long. I mean, they had some kickoff returns for touchdowns in the XFL, but it at least gives you an opportunity for a return. I would say adopt that. And for the love of God, don't tell the other team your plans. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm on offense. It's 4th and 1. Here's what we're going to do. I just got to let you know before we do it. You're taking football out of football with that. It makes no sense. It makes zero sense.
Yeah. Here's a comment. Can you talk about draft targets? We will get to that. I'm going to talk about one right now as we close out the show. There's a lot of time until the draft. We're going to have a lot of shows on the draft. I don't read much into the combine. It literally is the underwear Olympics. I can't get too excited. I want to talk about the wide receiver Xavier Worthy, because with a 4.25 and then a 4.21, that gets your attention. Now, heading into the combine, he's someone who's expected to go start of round 2, end of round 1. Now they're saying obviously a lock for round 1. And here's the deal, which I know a lot of fans of Dolphins don't like. Wide receivers in need. You got 2 guys that you can count on right now, Hill and Waddle. Everyone else is a free agent. You got River Craycraft. You got Chase Claypool, Robbie Anderson. You have Braxton. They're all free agents. Eric Uzakama is not, but again, he's coming off a neck injury, and who knows if he's ever going to be the same. Neck injuries you don't mess around with. And on top of only having Hill and Waddle, I'm not going to go down that road. We all know Hill has, let's just say, a very active off-the-field life. You kind of need some insurance there, I think. I think it's time we have to come to terms with that. This guy might go off the deep end any one day, and you better be ready for when that day happens. They need 3rd wide receivers, 4th wide receivers, and wide receiver in round 1 isn't the most craziest idea. Of course, you got to see what they do first. If they sign a couple offensive linemen and that's not a glaring need in round 1, okay. But if they don't, then that might be a more pressing need. We got to see what they do. But wide receiver in round 1 is not as crazy a pick. I'll say this. I know he's fast worthy. I don't think he's what Miami needs. I think they need a little size wide receiver. If the kid from LSU's there, he'd be top of my list. I think he ran himself out of 21-2. He ran a 4.34, and he's like 6'3.5. I mean, he's going to go probably top 15, top 20, but he was probably more of a fit of what Miami needs to have someone to go with Hill and Waddle, someone who's more like a red zone guy, have a little size. Worthy's good, don't get me wrong, but I'm skeptical of guys who were like second round, late first, just run a good track, and now, they go flying up the board. I don't know if he's a fit for what Miami is looking for, but I'm okay with wide receiver 21, all depending on what happens. I just don't know if it's him. That's my only thing I'll say. So I'm a little cautious with him because he's good. I just don't know if he's the fit Miami needs.
Yeah. Everything's up in the air in 21 for pick 21. Like you said, we could see the team surprise us and say, hey, we like this wide receiver, let's draft him. But the logical pick, hey, let's take an interior offensive lineman, aka
I think it's edge rusher.
It could be an edge rusher also. I don't know which edge rusher just yet. I know they've been tied to the kid from UCLA, but we still got a long way to go. Nothing is decided regarding the draft until you get through free agency. Right, the Dolphins could fill, the needs at wide receiver and free agency, and they're not going to sit there and just draft one at 21 after they just filled the needs, right? Because you got 2 top end guys already on the roster. Are you drafting a wide receiver 3 at 21? For me, it depends who's there. If Xavier Worthy's sitting in your lap and the top offensive linemen are off the board because of how well these guys have tested and the needs and for the teams in front of Miami, they may go offensive line crazy, which pushes really good football players down the board for skill position. So don't put it past the Dolphins to go after a position you don't think they would, like wide receiver. Maybe tight end falls.
Well, here's a question right here. If Brock Bowers falls, that would be the one non-premium guy I think he would take. But here's the deal. I've seen some people think he's going like top 10. I've seen others where he falls to like 16, 17, 18. I don't think he's fallen to 21. Yeah. I don't think he's fallen that far. Now, if you told me he falls to like 16, 17, 18, okay, maybe. I seen him go as high as number 10 to the Jets. I still think he's probably going to go inside the top 10. He is that good. But I don't think he's fallen to 21, and I don't think Miami's in a spot to trade up because, again, so few picks. But he would be a guy. Look, if he falls to 21, I know it's a non-premium spot, but there's always exceptions to the rule. He might be one of them.
Absolutely. Brock Bowers in this offense, oh boy. The options will be endless. If you get a tight end that actually puts fear into the defense. Durham Smythe is an okay player. He's not keeping defensive coordinators up at night. Brock Bowers will.
We don't use tight ends, but
we don't.
Here's my thing.
Because I don't think we have the right one.
Yeah.
I think that's more of the reason why.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a third wide receiver is much more value than a tight end one. It's just me. My thoughts. But yeah, I think those needs. I think Armstead's another interesting one. Now they could cut him as a post-June 1st thing, but again, then you're just opening up another hole you have to fill. Kendall Lamb's also a free agent. I don't know if you want to have him be your left tackle one and go pay him. And then if you say you cut Armstead, then Lamb's going to ask for a lot more money because you're like, oh, now you expect me to start? Okay, pay me more. I don't think they do that with Armstead.
I know it wouldn't make sense because
nothing surprises me with this general manager. Nothing surprises me.
If they do that, they have to do it obviously before March. I think March 17th when his $13
all becomes guaranteed.
Becomes guaranteed. So zero chance, in my opinion, if he says he's coming back. They make no move with Armstead when he's on the field, and that's the issue. He's not on the field enough, but when he's there, he's an amazing left tackle. The problem is he gets hurt too much, and it's always those.
He'll give you 8 solid games.
It's always 8 solid games. Injuries with him. guy rolls up on his leg in Buffalo, like while he's engaged on a block. It's always a freak injury with Teron Armstead, but when he's healthy, when he's on the field, he's fantastic. You can't ask for more from a left tackle outside of playing more.
I think the offensive tackle from Georgia there, Mims, who probably will be there at pick 21.
Oof.
Fantastic. Guy
Yes.
was always injured too. I could see Chris Grier falling in love with him. But again, he'll be another guy who you bring in, give you a solid 12 games. Don't expect much more.
Right.
So I could see Chris Grier falling in love with that guy. He checks all the boxes, went to a big school, can play offensive tackle, and got a little bit, something's wrong, something's off. Who knows? It's going to be interesting. But, yeah, those are the big news stories here past 24 hours or so. Like I said, news is going to come fast and furious. Subscribe to DolphinsTalk.com podcast network here so you don't miss any of our shows this week. I know we got Marissa's back. You got Stephen D in the morning. Josh and Aaron, I'm sure will have a show on Monday, which I'm almost positive they do. I don't know. But there's going to be a lot of news coming here this next week as the Dolphins need to get under the cap here. And again, by March 5th, we'll know one way or another on Wilkins. As of right now, latest report, not going to tag him. That can always change. Things change. It's always fluid. So we'll talk about that. Be sure to follow Tom on Twitter at DolphinsTalk.com. Follow myself at DolphinsTalk on Twitter, Instagram, Threads. Everyone have a great Sunday night. Have a great start of your week on Monday. We'll talk to you again after a while. And folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.
What's up?